This is Support is Sexy, episode 557, with Ana Pompa Alacorn Rawls, founder of Findsisterhood. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so happy to have you here. It would not be the same without you. And I am super excited to share a project today that is truly after our hearts around here, all about support. This is with Ana Pompa Alacorn Rawls, who is the founder of Findsisterhood. If you don't already have it, make sure you download the app. Fantastic app, but really what I love about Findsisterhood and Ana's story is that it's all about community and creating a safe space for women to not only share their stories and ask their questions, but to get the answers that they need, to not have any fear about being quote unquote found out, because the whole thing is anonymous. And Ana talks in this episode of how she goes to great lengths to make sure that it remains anonymous. So this app isn't just about, women sharing about their sex lives or moms complaining about their children, although there's that, which is a great thing. We need spaces to do that. But she also speaks about more of the other things that we might not consider, like if a woman is, say, going through some kind of abuse and she happens to be an immigrant who is not documented, well, she might not go to the police, but she might go to a place like Findsisterhood, to the app, to ask a question of how she can get help. Or if someone has a medical issue that they're afraid to go to the doctor about, they might be able to at least get some guidance, feedback from the community, and plus be able to know that they're not alone, right? That's what it's all about, knowing that you're not alone in everything that you do. So I'm a big fan of the app, if you cannot tell, and I love chatting with Ana about it. She's so passionate. And another thing I love, that this really shows how your passion and your desire to really solve a pain point for yourself can become your calling. So now, without further ado, for me, Ana Pompa Alacorn Rawls. So Ana, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited too.
Excellent. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
I really think it took me a while to fall in love with that, mostly because I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I never thought I'm going to start my own thing. And when it happened and I realized that the thing I've built became a company, or should be a company to be more accessible for women all over the world, I kind of struggled with that because I have 2 small kids and I'm in a foreign country. And I was like, wow, this is going to be a company. I'm going to run this. I'm not really sure. Can I do this? I don't know what to do. I don't even understand all of the paperwork documents involved with creating a company in a language that is not my native language. Like, what am I even doing here? Mm-hmm. But I think it really clicked for me once I started meeting other entrepreneurs and talking to them and seeing, oh, hold on, they also feel that way. Like, all of us are overwhelmed. I don't have to have it figured out on day one. And it's really important to find your tribe and people that go through the same thing, to just check in with yourself and say, it's okay. You don't have to know everything. No one does. And I think once I learned that imperfection is okay, that's when I really started loving what I'm doing and being more passionate about the fact that I am going to be running the show for Findsisterhood.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's your home country?
So I'm half Austrian, half Mexican. So my dad is from Mexico. My mom is from Austria. I've lived in both countries. I grew up bilingual. So yeah, both countries. I consider both countries my home countries.
Okay. And then where are you based? You mentioned when you thought about starting this company, you were based in another country and then writing, I guess, the Findsisterhood app in English. So where are you based now? Are you in the States now?
Yes. So my husband is American, and we right now live in LA.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we move a lot.
Okay. So now growing up, did you grow up between Austria and Mexico as well? Between both countries?
Yes. First Austria, then Mexico, then Austria again.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so, growing up bilingual, which my kids are doing now too. Well, they're trilingual, but I think it really forms also the way you think and the way you feel, because when you think, feel, and dream in another language, it does connect you, even if you're not always there. So I think people are always very surprised that I say I'm half Austrian, half Mexican. I never say I'm just Austrian, even though that's where I spent more years. But first of all, it's not true. I have both citizenships. My parents are from those two countries. Those are my languages. And that's really how I see myself and how I identify as myself. And same goes for my kids. Like, I see my kids as children from 3 countries and not just immigrants to the US and you're just American. It's like, no, we're a mix of like all of those cultures and languages and roots and traditions. So yeah.
Now, you mentioned that your children are now will be trilingual because they'll speak English as well. I'm assuming that's the third one you're talking about.
Yes.
How do you make sure to teach them each language? Obviously, I would imagine your husband speaks English. You speak 2 languages. So do you have, say, a tutor or a teacher or someone else who's teaching them the third language, or do you speak to them in both?
No, that's such a good question. Yeah, we struggled with that a lot because every recommendation tells you to only use one language. And so don't speak 2 languages with the kid. And so I speak German. My husband speaks English. And what we did for the first, I think, 3 years is that we would do every single book and every single music in our house still is in Spanish. Okay. Meaning, so for example, my kids don't sing The Wheels on the Bus. They sing Las Ruedas del Autobús. Right. So they know all of the kids' songs in Spanish. All of their kids' books are in Spanish. And so we would sit down every night for an hour and read books. My husband also speaks Spanish. He learned it. So we would sit down, read Spanish books and like point at things. And Layla, that's our oldest one. She just started school a week ago. And so she goes to an immersion school that is 90% Spanish. So she does know all 3 languages the same way. And Ezra, that's my smaller one, he goes to a bilingual daycare. So half of his teachers are native Spanish speakers. And his first word was agua, Spanish. And it's so interesting because I'm speaking German to him. My husband speaks English. And so it took us weeks. Yes. And it took us weeks to realize by agua, he means water in Spanish, because it didn't occur to me that would be his first word. So he didn't really say agua. Otherwise I would have understood. Agua. And I'm like, what is he talking about? And I'm like, oh, he means agua, Spanish. Oh, got it. Sorry, Ezra. Wow. Just took us a few weeks. But yeah, like even for us, it's sometimes a guessing game. What language is the kid speaking right now?
That's amazing. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I'm always so intrigued, especially, 2 languages, you can kind of understand how someone might do it or be able to teach their kids both, but 3 just sounds just amazing. That's a beautiful gift that you're giving to them.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So what would you say were your aspirations for when you were growing up? What would you say were your aspirations wherever you were, Mexico, Austria, etc.? Did you have an idea of what you wanted to do?
So I always knew, which is like so cliche, but I always knew I wanted to get married and I wanted to have 2 kids. And I wanted to travel the world. I think that's like things I knew that those are things that I dreamt of my entire life. I knew I wanted to be a mom. I knew I wanted to travel a lot. I knew I wanted to learn new languages and have a family. Business-wise, since I never saw myself as an entrepreneur, what did matter to me was that I was passionate about my job. Like, I think it was very, very important to me that I work on something that I actually like with people that I like, and that it's not just a job that I do to make money, but that it's a job that I do because I believe in it, or I believe in the people that I work for, or ideally both things at the same time.
Would you say that you felt, since entrepreneurship wasn't something that was foremost in your mind, would you say when it was time to create Sisterhood, the app, that you felt pulled to do that? Like it was something that you just had to do, had to create?
Well, we did it after a lot of user testing. So we built a very lean startup doing a lot of user testing. So it's definitely
the inspiration phase before you did that, the testing and all that, even just to create it in general.
Yeah, I think definitely what happened is that it's very much aligned with who I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it ended up to be a tech startup that does what I used to do my entire life. I grew up with my grandparents very close to me. So I would see, my parents we're all a very close family, like very, very close, emotionally close. And so I grew up with a mom that till today, she's my best friend and the closest woman in my life besides my daughter. And then there's her mom, my grandma, and we're like all so extremely close and such a little tribe of women and a power. And then I had a sister a few years later, and that too, she was like my baby for me. Mm-hmm. And so I think that Sisterhood, which is now a community of women, is something I've had my whole life, and I've tried to recreate my whole life. When I first met my husband, when we moved in together, I moved to New York for him, New York City. So in New York City, the first thing I did was trying to find my tribe. I need to find other women. I need to have friends. I need women in my life. I just need that. And then we moved from New York. After a few years, we moved to Munich for a year. And like the very first thing I did is I went on Facebook groups and I looked for women and mommy groups in Munich. And the same thing when we moved to LA, I was like, where is that? So I think this longing to have a tribe, to have a community, to have women empower each other, that has always been part of my life. And it just so happens now that, or maybe probably not a coincidence that mm-hmm. happens to be now my company.
Right. So now tell us about your company, Sisterhood, and how it works and what the intention is behind it.
Sure. So Sisterhood, it's a social network for women. It's anonymous and it's untraceable. So what the inspiration behind it was really that I was trying to find a way to connect women better. So we started with a survey, interviewing 400 moms and trying to find out, like, why is it that we feel so lonely and isolated? What could help us to not feel that way? And so my first idea was something a little bit different. It was connecting women, or moms in my case, with other moms in like their neighborhood so they could hang out easier. That was like the first idea. So I did a survey, and then, well, first of all, one of the things that happened was that an app launched doing exactly that. So that's when you learn to pivot as an entrepreneur, and you say, okay, either that means my idea is amazing and like I should really do it, or do I pivot now and try something new? Mm-hmm. In my case, I said, you know what, let's try something new. Let's go back to those women and let's ask them again. So we did another survey, and a lot of the overwhelming feedback was, I don't even have time to meet other people. Like, what I really need is a resource where I can talk about things. And so I said, well, but what kind of talking would that be? Like, are we talking about, because there are closed Facebook groups. That's actually how I met a lot of the women that participated in my survey. And the overwhelming majority of women said they want to talk about sex and relationships and motherhood, but in a way that they don't feel judged. And I think that's when it really hit me to understand, wow, yeah, if I think about it, even for myself, I would never post on any social network that I'm on and say, today my kids, like, today motherhood is not easy. Today I'm overwhelmed and I'm exhausted. And I need a break. This is too much. And you don't post when things are hard in your marriage. You don't post when there's like something bad in your life. You always just post the best version of yourself on social media. And highlights. So, yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And so I digged into that topic much more. And I was like, okay, ladies, can you help me figure out why do we do that? Like, do you even understand that we're beating ourselves up? Because what do? I go on a social network, I check out all of the photos of my mommy friends, and they all look amazing. Right. 24/7, they look so amazing. And I'm like, that's not me.
They look amazing. Their kids look amazing, right?
Oh yeah, their husbands looks amazing. They have sex 7 days a week, right. Clearly. Right. All of their food are basically food porns all day long, and everything is home cooked, organic, regional. And I'm just like, this is not me. I'm like a hot mess. This is not me at all. And then, like, talking to women, I realized everyone felt that way, but we still feel the pressure on posting photos. Like, everyone for different reasons. I, for example, don't post photos. I have a very private account, but I don't post photos to like highlight how amazing my life is. I literally post photos because our families are all over the world, and that's like the only way that I don't get too overwhelmed and they keep seeing updates of my kids. So everyone uses it differently, but at the end of the day, we all have that pressure. That photo has to be amazing. Like, the kid has some dirt in the face, let me wipe the dirt away. Or we take a selfie and it's like, you have your eyes closed, you don't smile enough. Can you smile again? Let's do it again. Let's do it again. It's insane what we're doing, including myself. And so I said, well, what if we take all of that away and we just have a platform, a way to communicate without photos, without names, without any identity? Like, wouldn't that help us? Wouldn't that be so liberating and free? And the feedback was really positive. And so we started building the app. And by we, I mean my husband. He's a web developer. He wrote every single line of code for the beta version. And so I would do the user testing. I would interview users. I would work on the design together with my brother, who has a design company, and helped me get everything off the ground. So it was really a family activity. It was my husband and my brother and me working together on, like, how can we make this a tool that women can use? And then the tool was finally ready. Well, ready as can be, considering it was meant to be like an app for, other women and me to anonymously vent about our husbands and kids and life in general. And then women started downloading it, and they started posting very different stories than what I thought. Because of course, everyone is going to use the tool the way that they need it. And I think in that was also that moment when it became clear this has to be a real, like, a company, and I have to not just work on that, Monday to Friday, but I'm going to work my ass off to make this happen. Because when I read those first stories that came from women that didn't know me, that didn't know my vision, that just randomly found the app, downloaded it, and posted their stories in there, and how it changed their lives, they would reach out to me and tell me, I just posted an anonymous story in Findsisterhood. This is the story I shared. This is the advice I've gotten. And thanks to Findsisterhood, I just took action. And when I read those things, I realized this is so much bigger. This is not just us venting. This is a new way to handle social media. Instead of beating ourselves up over who has the better selfie and the better makeup and the bigger house, we could actually have a social network where all we do is empower each other. That's all we're going to do. And I think it's a very beautiful way that we could see how the beta version of Findsisterhood really did that.
I love it, Ana. That's beautiful. Just the intention behind it, and the fact that, as you said, you were thinking of it one way, or think of how you might use it in one way. And then just the fact that it existed gave these women who downloaded it the opportunity or the possibility to say, this is a platform where I can share whatever kind of stories they shared. I'm sure it was a personal story, or maybe something that they never would have shared, on Instagram or somewhere else, as you said. So the fact that you took action and you created it, one, thank you for that. But then also the fact that it resonated so deeply with the women who connected with it. And I think I love what you said too. It's really more about connection than about social connection, as opposed to just social media and showing the highlights.
Yes.
Yes. Excellent. So what would you say was the next step for you and the company once you determined that, as you said, okay, this needs to be a company as opposed to just, something that I'm doing to see how it works? Like, when did you really take that step to say, okay, we're going to really create something out of this?
So I think that we're going to make a company out of that was we're going to make it real was last fall, when I had really time to focus on that full time. The moment when I realized I'm basically going to put my own life on hold for a while, was this spring, when a lot of things started happening at the same time. So, for example, I got invited to hold a talk at Harvard University about gender-based violence and the Me Too movement. Because sadly, but of course, we got sexual abuse stories in Findsisterhood of women that have never shared what happened to them. And now that they had a social network where they could share in an anonymous way, they would share those things. So I remember when Harvard invited me, it was a tough personal day, because my grandparents that day got into a very bad car accident. And I was just devastated and questioning everything. And then I got this email and I was like, so I feel like really, I believe in faith and I believe in karma. Every time that there was something in my life and I said, I can't do this anymore. I need to stop. I need to focus on other things, on what's really important. Because I think that's what a lot of us women have been taught by society or even by ourselves. We have to do, what really matters, because our career and our passion and our vision a lot of times don't even matter to ourselves. So I remember, I think that was one of the moments where I realized, what does that even mean, Anna, to say I need to do what really matters? That company matters. Those users matter. Those stories matter. And when I saw that email and they were like, can you be like a speaker at the Harvard University Innovation Summit about the gender-based violence? I realized, because that's actually what I'm doing. And that is amazing. And it was maybe not my intention, but that is what the tool Findsisterhood is doing, what our community is doing for each other. So yes, absolutely. And then a week later, I got accepted to the Mass Challenge Accelerator in Boston. And so I mostly did it because I wanted to connect to a network of other entrepreneurs. I really needed mentorship. Both of my husband's parents are from Boston originally. So I had a lot of in-laws that I could stay with, and like the connection family-wise of, okay, there are people in Boston, I can do that. And so I started the accelerator in June. And I think when all of those things happened, that was within 4 or 5 weeks. That's when I started working 7 days a week, mostly 20 hours a day. So I would and I still do, that's like the crazy hours. And so it started all like 4 or 5 months ago when it got really, really intense. And I just decided I am going to do this no matter what. And I'm not going to start making up excuses. I'm going to stop mommy guilt tripping myself and mommy shaming myself, because this here is something that one day I can be proud of and tell my kids that I built that while also raising them. And that matters to me.
That's right. Oh, I love that. And the fact, the mommy guilt, I'm not a mom, but I know so many moms and even women I've interviewed who talked about how very real that is. But then they think about what they're building is for their children and letting their children sort of see that process too and know that mommy is working hard, especially, for all the women I talk to, but for you, having something that has so powerfully impacted the lives of women already. And then who knows, what more, I'm sure it's going to do even more to help so many other women. And one of the things you mentioned is about it being anonymous. Would you say that when you first started when you first developed the app, that the anonymity was important so that people would feel free to share?
Yes, absolutely. It was not even as important as it is now. So when we started it, we just said, let's take away the names so women can talk freely. But once we saw what kind of stories they were posting on Findsisterhood, women that are married to a police officer who is abusive and that are scared and don't know how to divorce him, women that are undocumented immigrants and that are afraid of being deported and therefore don't seek help with doctors. When we realized this is actually a tool that is used in such a powerful way, that's when we started rebuilding an entirely new app that we launched yesterday. It's still Findsisterhood, so we're just we're going to take down the beta version soon, We just yesterday launched the final Findsisterhood Inc. And so the way that it's built is with one-way cryptography, meaning it is 100% untraceable. And that became even more important after reading the content. Because I guess if it would have stayed the way that I thought it's going to be, and women just say, oh, my kid is today annoying, or I don't know, I haven't had sex in 2 weeks or whatever, it wouldn't have mattered that much. But seeing, this could actually harm women and get back to them. So we need to be sure that we're the safest space on the internet. How do we do that? And I talked to so many developers. My husband connected me to an amazing team of developers, and I got advice and I talked to them. I had mentors at the Mass Challenge. I talked to so many people and I said, what do I do? How do I do it? We played around with the thought of using blockchain and like all kind of technologies that we can use to make it safer. And now the new app is a one-way cryptography using Facebook to only verify the gender. Meaning when you download it and you open Findsisterhood, it shows you connect to Facebook and it says, we're only asking to look at your gender. So we ask Facebook, is this a woman? Facebook says, yeah, that's someone that identifies as a woman on Facebook. We're like, okay, cool. And then that woman can enter. So we don't collect Facebook ID, Facebook name, nothing, absolutely nothing. We don't even have the email addresses of users that download the app. Mm-hmm. And that was on purpose because I said, what if someday we have all these women share that? And then someone knocks on our office door and says, we want to know who those women are, all those undocumented immigrants. We want to know who the women are that are posting about this and that. Like, that's not safe. What if someone hacks our database and finds out the Facebook IDs connected to the posts? We don't want that. And so we decided, which of course it's a bold move for a social network, because that's what most social networks do. They track down their users. And we're like, we're going to do the opposite. We are not going to know anything about our users. We're just going to provide them a safe space. So the anonymity and the untraceable thing became more and more important. And it's the main reason why we had to launch an entirely new app now.
Mm-hmm. And as far as you mentioned just now, and in the video I saw on your website also about making sure that women who are immigrants have a space where they can ask simple things that some of us might think are simple questions when you go to the doctor, but they might not be going to the doctor because they're afraid of something happening, or if they're in an abusive relationship, they might not get help and need some place to reach out that feels safe. So how are you reaching out to those women to tell them about the app? Are you doing any specific kind of outreach, or has most of it been word of mouth from what you know?
Well, so far, everything has been word of mouth because it was a beta version. We weren't even a company until a few months ago. Mm-hmm. And I also didn't have the resources. I didn't have the money to promote the app or the time to be the marketing manager myself or hire someone. Now that is different. So what we're doing right now is we're launching the app all over the country. And we're going specifically to communities where we want to have them on the app. So yesterday was actually our launch party here in Boston.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And what did you say the name of the accelerator is that you're with in Boston? I missed the name of it.
The Mass Challenge.
Okay.
Yeah. And so since the Mass Challenge is coming to an end, and I have some investors in Boston through my time in Boston, and some mentors and other startups and friends. That's why we decided to launch the first one in Boston, which happened last night. And it was an incredible, evening together with all of those people that have helped me so much during the last few months to make this happen. But so one of the way that we want to reach those communities is that we're going to have, for example, the launch party in LA. I'm teaming up with organizations that specifically work with the Latina market. Mm-hmm. And so we'll have launch parties where women are invited, where we specifically invite Latina women, bilingual women, and say, hey, this is an app built by someone who is bilingual, who is Latina herself, and who is trying to help our community. And it's so beautiful to see for Findsisterhood whenever I reach out to a woman and say, can you help me spread the word? Can you help me to do this and that? I've never received a no. That has never happened to me in my entire life. Mm-hmm. People are really willing to help when they see how impactful this is. And so I'm trying to go inside those communities. I want to go inside those communities and say, you need to help me to spread the word inside your communities about Find Sisterhood. And so that's what we're trying to do with the events that we're going to be hosting, and really go there and talk to people and connect to them, hear their worries, like have them ask me questions and be like, what is your worry? Like you're concerned about your identity. Well, this is what I can tell you. This is how I can help you. I can connect you to my developers. So really trying to be extremely transparent and safe, because I think if I expect my users to trust me with their deepest secrets, then I also have to be willing to go inside those communities and give them answers to their questions. And that's what we're doing with those events.
And do you have a way that you, oh gosh, I have so many questions, so many good questions. Well, one of the things I want to make sure, can people access it in their native language? So is there a way to see it in different languages, or is it right now all in English?
Right now it's all in English, but we'll be launching the first Spanish Find Sisterhood in a few months. So that's actually one of our top priorities for the beginning of 2019, to launch a Spanish Find Sisterhood. Mm-hmm. And I cannot wait to launch that in Mexico City, in it's going to be my home city.
That's going to be amazing. That's next month?
No. That's going to be January, hopefully.
Okay. So I'll be in Mexico City next year, but I think it's going to be later in the year, like March or April. We'll stay in touch.
Okay, yes, we'll stay in touch.
And also I wanted to ask, I don't want to forget to ask, I know women obviously post their stories or questions, and then you mentioned earlier that someone said, and these are the responses that I received, or the suggestions, etc. So do other women in the group come in and make their suggestions? Is it sort of like a community thing of as far as answering the questions, or do you have people who are, say, professional therapists or anything like that, who answer some of these things that might be, not more serious, but things that are very important, like if abuse or dealing with anything like that?
So it's both. So you can imagine it like you post something, it's anonymous, it's on there, and then women can like the post. They can follow that post so that they continue seeing what's happening, or they can comment. And so let's say, for example, I post that I'm struggling with something related to my job, and then women can just comment, and I can actually have a conversation with them. Because what happens a lot of time is, you post something, like, for example, on Facebook groups, on like closed Facebook mommy groups, and you send the admin and say, hey, can you please post this anonymous for me? And they do. But then the women that respond say, well, hold on, how old is your kid? Or how long have you had that job? And you can't comment back, because then they would know who you are.
Oh, it doesn't comment back. And I didn't even know you could ask someone to post something for you anonymously. But then you're saying when you comment back, if you respond, it shows who you are.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, I've seen that in like mommy groups. It's a thing on Facebook mommy groups that you send the admin a post and say, hey, can you please post this for me? I don't want people to know that it's me. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so on Find Sisterhood, you can just comment back and forth. Like you can post, I don't know, my child is not sleeping through the night. I'm going insane. I'm like so tired. I don't know what to do anymore. And then women say back, well, how old is your kid? And you're like, oh, thanks. Sorry, completely forgot to mention. My child is 3 months old. And then the other one goes, oh, that's normal. 3 months old. 3 months old babies don't sleep through the night. So you can comment back and forth. Mm-hmm. And so...
Sorry, I was just going to say, and sometimes that's a great example, because I'm thinking about it. Sometimes it's not even quote unquote advice. It's just knowing that you're not crazy, right? Or you're not alone, or your kid isn't, different because they're doing, et cetera. Other kids are like that. So I think that's probably, I would imagine, a big part of it too.
Right. And like one of the questions, for example, that we have all the time is women saying, hey, how often do you really have sex? And like, there is absolutely no reason for you to lie. Like, why would you lie? People don't even know who you are. So you might as well just tell the truth.
Right.
And if they tell the truth, and you see in the comments thread, other women saying, oh my God, I'm so relieved. Mm-hmm. Oh, I thought something was wrong with my relationship. Or they're like, oh, I'm so grateful. And turns out all they needed to hear was the permission of other women, and hear, hey, it's okay. If you're tired and exhausted and you don't have sex every day or every week, and it's been a while, that is okay. And there are other women that do the exact same thing, but we just assume that everyone has this perfect life. Right. And so when you ask about those, like, do we have professionals answering questions? We used to have in the beta version spotlights where we had experts answering questions. So for example, we'd have a dating coach giving relationship advice, or a fertility specialist talking about infertility issues. So we had different experts for very different topics. But it was interesting to see, of course, the community got a lot of advice and it was amazing. But really, one of the things that I feel like from reading through the posts that the community needed even more was just other women. Mm-hmm. Like they really, they just wanted to hear from other women that it's okay and that they are going through the same thing. Because I think on Findsisterhood, more than half the time, all they want to hear is, this is exactly what I'm going through and you're not alone. And just knowing that makes them feel so much better. And I get it. That's just what I said about entrepreneurship. Knowing that everyone is struggling and knowing that no one has it all figured out helped me to accept that I'm not perfect either. Right. And so that's something I think that happens on Findsisterhood a lot. And in the future, I am bringing on organizations that actually can provide resources and accesses to the community for exactly those kind of things, like undocumented immigrants. So I do want to bring in organizations that specifically work with them together and have them back us up and say, look, they really are untraceable. You're too afraid to come to us so that we can help you. Well, then at least let us help you by asking you questions on Findsisterhood. And we'll go back and forth with you until you feel safe enough to actually come and see a doctor. Or until you feel safe enough to actually come and see an attorney that can help you get out of an abusive marriage, even though you might be in another tricky situation in your life. So I'm working right now on starting all those partnerships to really have professional resources for women if they choose that that's what they need.
And I would imagine from a legal, not to get too far in the weeds here, but just thinking about it from a legal standpoint, especially mention of immigrants, from a legal standpoint, you had to make sure, or you're making sure that, just as you said, a government agency or whatever can't come to you and demand this information, but because you literally don't have access to it, it won't even be like you're keeping it from them. So you guys are setting up to make sure that you can say, well, we just don't have that, because sometimes they go after these companies and say, we want all this data.
Right. Which is why first I was talking to my attorney saying, how do we do that? Mm-hmm. I want them to feel safe. I want women to be able to post whatever. Let's talk about countries where women are not allowed to be homosexual. I mean, mm-hmm. Jesus, there's still those countries out there.
Yes.
So I want women to be able to come and say, freely, I'm in love with another woman, but I'm not allowed to act on it. I don't know what to do. We have that too mm-hmm. on Findsisterhood. So it's it's not even talking about the US, but in general, there's so many countries where there's so many things that we're not even allowed to say. Or imagine a country where a woman cheats on her husband and she could actually go, to prison for that or lose her life. So I kept trying to find ways, how do we do that to not have to ever reveal the data? Mm-hmm. And then my developers were like, well, if you don't collect the data, then there is nothing they can get.
That's what I was thinking. If you don't get it in the first place, you're not even just saying this is protected or we're keeping it from you. You're saying we literally don't have it.
Yes.
Gender. And you mentioned gender, so I wanted to make sure everyone knows from everything I read, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's for women and those who identify as women.
Right. Yeah. Right. Everyone identifying as a woman can come into our app. I'm trying to be very clear about that because mm-hmm. I do know that there are a lot of communities out there of women that actually need Findsisterhood a lot. And
right.
They're all welcome in our app.
I love it. I always say this at the end of the podcast, but I can't even wait to tell you just anything I can do to support you. I'm already thinking about other people you could talk to as far as interviews and press and things, because I just think it's so, well, of course, it's aligned very much. I'm all about support, so I love it. But I just think it's so powerful. And I love that you just, that you really seem like you are answering the call, for creating this and then making it bigger and then making it safe and then making it open and then finding partners. So thank you for all the women out there who will either use this or just even knowing that something like this exists. The fact that you answered that call.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And also actually wanted to mention that like you are one of those examples that, someone says, this is such an amazing mission. I need to connect you to a friend of mine. And then next thing I know is that you sent me an incredible, sweet email.
Aww.
I think like all of those experiences with women like you, there are so many women actually out there that don't want to have cat fights and that are not jealous about each other and
Right.
that actually want to help. And that's really one of the best things that I've learned with Find Sisterhood is that we women were actually so much better than society sometimes wants to paint the picture of women coming together.
That's right. Now, what would you say entrepreneurship overall has taught you about yourself as a woman?
I think mostly that you cannot have it all without paying a very high price. I used to be blindsided by thinking, same social media, that, there are women that have a company and they have husbands and they have amazing kids and beautiful houses and stuff like that. I think the biggest learning experience so far for me has been just how much that costs you. And that there's going to be a lot of heartache. There's going to be a lot of tears and you'll question yourself and you'll really need people that have your back. I know that it is not about being the smartest person or about being, the fastest or the best educated person. I think it really depends on have your tribe that has your back and have people that whenever you're like on the floor and you say, I can't do this anymore, that there's always someone that comes and says, no, you can, and gives you like their hand and hugs you and tells you, you got this. And that's like the biggest learning, because I don't think like if you're not an entrepreneur, it's probably a little bit different because you always have the option to theoretically find a new job. When you're an entrepreneur, that's your baby you're talking about.
Mm-hmm,
that's
right.
not a thing where you're just like, oh, I'm just going to pivot and find a new company. I'm just going to start all over again. Like most of us don't have the opportunity to do that. And so I think the biggest learning was really that it's not about me. It's not about being the smartest, the best or anything. It's about having the most amazing people in my life that have my back, that made it possible. Like a husband who is, raising the kids by himself for 4 months while I'm at the Mass Challenge, mm-hmm. and who drives the tears of my kids whenever I have to leave to the airport. Or a friend, Griselda, for example, she has been a volunteer for Find Sisterhood and has helped me so much. And like, there have been times where at 10 at night, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And she would just talk to me on the phone and help me to calm down and say, hey, we can do this. You got this. And I think that like knowing that if you want to have a company, if you want to change the world, do it with people in your life and people that are aligned with you. That's like for me, the biggest one.
That's right. So in closing, Ana, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
That would definitely be my mom. Absolutely. Always. I think my mom, I would tell her that she's the reason that she taught me how strong and kind a woman can be. And she is the kindest human that I have ever met. And she's so strong. And she just holds this family together no matter what. And yeah, having a mom like her makes me really feel like I can climb a mountain, because like worst case happens, she's going to have my back and give me a push if I'm getting too tired. So it's always going to be my mom. And it's also an inspiration, not for just for business to always keep pushing, but it's an inspiration to try to one day be that kind of mom that my kids have.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Now tell us the ways that we can support you. And I'll have links, of course, to Find Sisterhood and everything. I'm actually grabbing my phone right now so I can download the app, right? I can do that right from my phone. I'm literally going to do it now, but tell everyone where they can find out more about you, any social media or anything else you want us to know.
Sure. So, Find Sisterhood is the name. It's one word, Find Sisterhood. We launched yesterday, so we're now in the App Store and in the Play Store. We finally have an Android version, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, nice.
And so, I'd love for women to download the app and give feedback. I love feedback. I can only do so much. So if I get feedback, that's actually something very helpful, because then we can build new features. If women say, hey, I feel like this is not self-explaining, can you please do this better? Or this is something I'd like to see in Find Sisterhood. Like, that's the kind of feedback that is so valuable, because if I get that feedback from people that don't know me personally, it's usually more pure. Because, my people don't want to hurt me. Of course they don't. They don't say, hey, Anna, this thing doesn't work, or this is not how I like it. So I love to have women reach out to me and say, hey, I just downloaded the app. Here are my thoughts. So please feel free to do that. And yeah, you can reach me. I mean, we have a website, findsisterhood.com. And our Instagram is also everything is Find Sisterhood. So you can find us on Facebook, Find Sisterhood app, on Instagram, Find Sisterhood app, and on Twitter, Find Sisterhood app. Although I'm not good with Twitter.
Mm-hmm. It's okay. People are kind of I feel like a lot of people are moving away from it.
Yeah, I'm like, I never even got started on it, but I do have a Twitter account for Find Sisterhood, and I'm trying to get better. But I think Instagram is the best way. I actually have a lot of users reaching out through Instagram, sending me messages about how Find Sisterhood changed their life. It's somehow Instagram is like the way for women to send me messages instead of emails. But yeah, you can also send me an email.
Excellent. What's the email? Is it okay if we mention it in here?
Sure. It's Ana, A-N-A. It's with one N because it's Spanish. So A-N-A @findsisterhood.com.
All right. Excellent. In the app, I'm excited. And I see where it says here, continue with Facebook. We only require this step to identify your gender. Since Find Sisterhood is a women's only space, we will never use your name. Beautiful. I love it. Excellent. Ana, thank you so much for sharing. Again, I don't know how many times I can thank you for even creating this, but I'm so happy to be connected with you. If there's anything else I can do to support you, just let me know. Thank you for sharing and inspiring the women who are listening to this podcast. And before you go, I have to ask you for a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything.
Oh, okay. Advice. I feel like I keep repeating myself. But the most important advice I can give in general to anyone, every age, every gender, is to be kind. Always, always, always be kind. It's going to surprise you that if you take out an hour of your day to just be kind and support other people, how much better it's going to make you feel and how much it's going to help you to go through the rough times. And always be kind is definitely the one thing that I remind myself every day of.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Ana as much as I did. To find out more about her, to find out about Find Sisterhood, make sure, one, that you download that app. You can find it in the App Store, but also just go to supportissexy.com. Go to that search box and just search Ana, A-N-A. Her show notes page will pop up with links, resources, all the ways to get in touch with her. She gave us her email also, so we appreciate that, Ana. But find out more about her, what she's creating with Find Sisterhood, how you can support. We're all about it. I really love what she's doing. Find out ways, if possible, that you can support the community. One way you can certainly help is by downloading the app, using the app if you need to, rating it, I'm sure would help. But find out more about Ana again by just going to supportissexy.com. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you being a part of this community. As I always say, it would not be the same without you, because you help us create a space and a platform for these women entrepreneurs to share their true stories and their experiences. So again, wouldn't be the same without you. All right, so now until we chat again, always remember, support is sexy, and having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.